Wow. Part 9. Do you know how many unbelievably amazing pieces of media didn't make it to Part 9? Game of Thrones only had 8 seasons. BoJack Horseman? Just 6. Heck, even Buddy Games, shockingly, has only 1 season so far. But here we are, with Big Brother Conspiracy Theories 9.0. Was Quinn's Deep Fake HOH power altered by production to help push the Cedric blindside through? Did Big Brother intentionally give Dan an advantage in a Big Brother 10 endurance competition, leading to him winning it? Today, we're looking at these and a few others as we continue marching through all of Big Brother's hidden secrets. Consider subscribing if you aren't already. It only takes a moment to check. And without further ado, for the 9th time, here are 5 conspiracy theories about Big Brother.
All right, Diane, it's your turn. Come on down. What would you like to say to Drew?
In the last iteration, I talked about a conspiracy theory regarding about how Howie possibly voted for Maggie to win Big Brother 6 on accident. The basis of this claim came from Danielle Reyes and Janelle, as they were seen talking about it on the Big Brother All-Stars live feeds. But this wasn't the only vote that they said was messed up. So, I finally get to talk about the other one now. This is the theory that in Big Brother 5, Diane actually meant to vote for Cowboy to win, but accidentally voted for Drew instead, leading to Drew winning in a vote of 4-3. For some background information, the final 3 of Big Brother 5 consisted of Drew, Cowboy, and Diane. Drew won the final HOH, and he had a big decision to make. He either votes out his best friend, Cowboy, or he votes out his showmance, Diane. So it was a lose-lose situation for him either way, but he ended up evicting Diane because he felt he had a better shot of beating Cowboy than her. Diane was clearly upset by this, but it seemed that she didn't let her emotions get in the way of her jury vote as she voted for Drew to win, resulting in Drew beating Cowboy in a 4-3 vote that was already way closer than it should have been. However, there's a rumor floating around that Diane wasn't actually as forgiving as her vote portrayed, and that she actually intended to vote against Drew, but she put the wrong key in when casting her final vote. On the All-Stars live feeds, Janelle directly says that Diane put the wrong key in, and that she was voting for Cowboy, which is admittedly a really weird thing for Janelle to just say if there wasn't any basis behind it, leading me to believe that she must have had some information given to her beforehand. I've also seen some claims online that Diane herself said on the All-Stars live feeds that she did mean to vote for Cowboy. However, I couldn't actually find any evidence of that happening, so I'm not sure about that one. While I do think that Janelle was likely told by someone that Diane meant to vote for Cowboy, I have such a hard time believing that she voted incorrectly. Outside of the fact that it makes a lot more sense in my head that Diane wanted to vote for Drew over Cowboy, I have the hardest time believing that she would have carelessly inserted the wrong key. When it comes to someone like Howie, I could believe that. But Diane, that would be much harder to convince me of. Plus, Diane's reaction to her key being revealed as a vote for Drew doesn't really look like the reaction someone would have if the key revealed something other than the intended name. Clearly, there is more to the story here that just hasn't been unearthed, so I can't count this theory out, but I personally have too hard of a time believing this to be the case. So, in my opinion, I deem this theory to be pretty unlikely. But you never know. Maybe a live feed transcript or a clip will be uncovered of Diane explicitly saying that she meant to vote for Cowboy. Or maybe Janelle or even Diane will come forward with some more information. But I wouldn't get my hopes up. It's been over 20 years now.
Did someone put in the wrong key this season?
We're not going to say, but you can't say, but Diane did it too. She did. She's voting for Cowboy.
Congratulations, guys. Drew, I care about you more than anything in the world. I told you from day one we'd keep it separate. Cowboy, but you've never lied to me, so.
The next vote, cast by Diane, goes to Drew to be the winner of Big Brother 5.
Up next, we have something from Big Brother 26 that, as soon as I saw it, I knew something fishy was going on. This theory is that the set of rules for Quinn's deepfake HOH power were not fully disclosed to Quinn on purpose, and that they decided to strip Quinn of his vote halfway through the week in order to make things spicier. Quinn had won the deepfake HOH power in week 1, and he used it in week 4 to secretly hack Angela's HOH, which basically just meant that Quinn overthrew Angela and he himself became the HOH that week. One of Quinn's allies, Cedric, offered to be a pawn in the hopes of taking out Tucker, but this ended up failing as Tucker won the veto, and the week ended with half of the house flipping on the vote in evicting Cedric over Rubina. Pawns often go home in Big Brother, so nothing is too out of the ordinary here. However, things start getting a bit more peculiar when you start looking at some of the smaller details. Throughout the entire week, all of us viewers were not told any of the details regarding this power. We weren't sure if Angela would be allowed to compete in the next HOH. We weren't sure if Quinn would be allowed to compete in the next HOH. And we weren't sure if Quinn would be allowed to vote this week, but we assumed that he actually would be allowed to. It turns out we weren't the only people who thought this, as it seems that the players in the house also thought that Quinn was allowed to vote. In one of Cedric's exit interviews, he claimed that one of the reasons he felt comfortable volunteering for the block was because they all thought that Quinn still had the ability to vote, which, at the time, felt like it was enough to ensure that Cedric would survive the block, even if T-Core and Chemo flipped on him. It wasn't until Wednesday, the day before the eviction, that Quinn was finally told by the producers that he wasn't allowed to vote. Now, it is pretty odd that they would wait that long to tell Quinn this information. And although Quinn admitted that he always just assumed he'd retain his vote without ever asking for specific clarification by the producers, it's still a fishy situation. Normally, when it comes to powers, there's a specific set of rules attached to them that the power holder receives when they get the power. Along those same lines, if a player is talking about their power with the other house guests and they say something incorrect regarding the power, that player is usually called to the diary room where they are then informed of their mistake, and then they have to go and clarify to the other house guests that what they said about the power was incorrect. Many times throughout this week, Quinn talked about how he thought he still had his vote, but he was never called into the diary room about it to be told that he was incorrect, which is really weird. This has led many fans to believe that the rules regarding the deepfake HOH were intentionally left ambiguous, and that the showrunners waited to make a ruling until they determined which course of action would result in the spiciest outcome. Once it became clear that Quinn didn't have his vote, it allowed for the idea of a flip to build up some momentum until it finally happened and Cedric was evicted. Now, I definitely think that it's extremely weird and fishy that the rules of Quinn's power were not disclosed to him immediately, regardless of whether or not Quinn ever asked for clarification. However, I have a hard time figuring out what the motive would be here for the producers to want a flip vote to happen that would send Cedric home over Rubina. Do you think the showrunners were like, let's figure out a way to make Cedric leave and keep Rubina in the game? Someone who they literally did not give a single confessional to in the 2 weeks leading up to this round. Flipped votes are always fun, but if there was some sort of production interference or manipulation going on, I feel like they wouldn't go about it in a way that would make it more likely for Cedric to get evicted. I don't know. Cedric seems to think that something fishy was going on too, and I agree that it was weird how things went down, but I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to jump fully on board the train that the showrunners changed the rules halfway through the week in order to make it more likely that the flip happened. But this is just a weird situation in general, and I do think something was up.
Congratulations, Quinn. Your game has been upgraded, and you have won the Deepfake HOH. You will strip the head of household of all their power.
All right, everyone. It's time for the live voting to begin. As the Deepfake HOH, Quinn cannot vote, but because it was a secret power, he still must be called in. How you doing, Quinn? Ah! By a vote of 6-3, Cedric, you are evicted from the Big Brother house.
Oh my God. Well, this sucks. I really did care about Cedric, so being the reason he went home, that does hurt. I'm sorry. I wanted him to stick around.
Up next, we have a theory that, if true, is the sole reason that one of Big Brother's most exhilarating weeks occurred. And that's the theory that in Big Brother 10, Dan was told ahead of time by the producers that the final 7 HOH was going to be a brutally cold and wet endurance competition, allowing him to dress appropriately and giving him a huge advantage. Going into the final 8 eviction, the house guests were able to guess that the next HOH comp would be an endurance challenge, so they all dressed in athletic wear in preparation. However, once they actually got to the competition, the majority of them realized that they weren't dressed suitably for the conditions. The endurance challenge saw the 6 players sitting on discs hung on ropes, but as soon as the competition kicked off, freezing rain started pouring down on the competitors. Now, pretty much every single player out there was either wearing a sleeveless top or a light shirt, except for Dan. Dan, for whatever reason, had a full-on rain jacket equipped with a hood, and he had some nice warm gloves on. This gave him a huge advantage in the challenge, as he had protection from the freezing cold water while all the other house guests were forced to just endure it on their skin, which certainly played a factor in Dan going on to win this competition. The big question here is, how did Dan know to wear his rain jacket for this competition when everyone else didn't think to do so? It's not like Dan wore his rain jacket every time he expected there to be an endurance comp. There was an endurance challenge 3 weeks earlier, and that rain jacket was nowhere in sight. So why did he wear one now? Well, the theory is that Dan was tipped off by the producers ahead of time to wear this protective clothing in order to give him an edge in winning the HOH. Dan was a huge fan favorite during the season, so there certainly would be incentive for the showrunners to want Dan to win an HOH at this point, and giving him a little advanced warning would be one way for them to tip the scales in his favor without blatantly rigging something. For what it's worth, the viewers weren't the only ones to think that something was fishy. During the competition, Michelle pointed out to Keisha that Dan was so conveniently prepared for this competition, and that she saw that as yet another piece of evidence that Dan was America's player, aka that he had gotten advanced warning of the challenge. Then, after the comp, Ali joined in on this, saying that Dan must have known about something because why else would he bring out a rain jacket in Southern California? With all the evidence, I do actually kind of feel like Dan may have gotten told ahead of time. At the same time, though, these other house guests weren't necessarily the smartest cookies in the oven, and it's genuinely not very hard to believe that Dan would be the only person keen enough to prepare for the possibility of cold rain during the endurance comp. So, although I certainly wouldn't be surprised if the producers tipped Dan off ahead of time to wear protective gear for the HOH comp, I also wouldn't be surprised if Dan was just being overly prepared. But overall, I would give this theory yeah, it could be true.
House guests, the power is up for grabs. Be the last person hanging on their jungle vine, because the competition starts now.
I'm glad I straightened my hair for an hour and a half.
Look at Dan's face.
I know. Dan will be up there a while.
I'm feeling very good at this point because every time we're in the rain, Ollie is shaking, and he can't stop himself. So I'm just hoping we're staying in the rain as long as possible.
Up next, we kind of have 2 theories in one, but they go together, so I'm only counting it as one. This theory is the theory that Big Brother 20 was not supposed to have a jury battle back, yet production was forced to incorporate one after Kaitlyn failed the bonus life puzzle, which is another small conspiracy in itself, as it's widely theorized that the bonus life puzzle was designed to be an almost guarantee win for whichever player was forced to play in it. That was kind of a lot, so we're going to go one step at a time here, starting with the puzzle. In the first week of Big Brother 20, a twist called the BB App Store was introduced that allowed the 3 most trending house guests to pick 1 power out of 5 across the first 3 weeks. One of the powers shown had like a +1 life icon. And between you and me, I think the producers knew what they were doing with that one and purposely made that one so enticing so that it would definitely be chosen, which of course happened when Sam picked the power with the first choice. This power made it so that Sam had the ability to allow one of the first 3 evicted house guests the chance to compete in a competition, and if they succeeded, they would re-enter the game. However, if Sam never used it, then the power would automatically be used on whoever was evicted in week 4. Sam never used the power, so when Kaitlyn was evicted in week 4 and the bonus life power app was automatically used, Kaitlyn geared up and was given 2.5 minutes to solve a 6-piece puzzle that was already solved to begin with. Now, Kaitlyn, I promise I'm not coming for you. But right off the bat, this seems to be in the player's favor to an extreme degree. And I've even heard some other theories that the competition testers didn't fail this puzzle a single time, which, if true, means that Big Brother gave Kaitlyn a challenge that had previously had a 100% success rate by the people who tested it out. Kaitlyn, of course, then went on to fail the puzzle. Go figure. The biggest indicator to me that this puzzle was 100% intended to be completed is that when Kaitlyn walked out on stage to meet Julie, there wasn't even a chair ready for her. What this tells me is that the producers were not expecting Kaitlyn to fail this, so much so to the point that they didn't feel the need to have a chair ready for Kaitlyn to sit on for her eviction interview with Julie because there wasn't supposed to be an eviction interview to begin with. So, with that in mind, this brings us to the second part of the theory. Since, in my opinion, the producers clearly didn't think that there was going to be an evicted houseguest in week 4, I'm assuming that they didn't feel the need to plan for a jury battle back either. I think after seeing the success in Big Brother 18, when Victor came back after being evicted in week 2 and then went on to win America's Favorite Player, Big Brother started to like the idea of incorporating a pre-jury battle back as opposed to a jury battle back. Then, when they incorporated it in Big Brother 19, they got the same thing, where Cody was evicted in week 2, came back, and then won AFP. Even going a season after Big Brother 20, you get to Big Brother 21, where they elected to have a pre-jury battle back with Camp Comeback as opposed to a jury one. So, I really do think that during this era of Big Brother, production saw the value of bringing back someone from the pre-jury as opposed to the post-jury. But smack dab in the middle of all of this, we have Big Brother 20's jury battle back, seemingly out of place. It starts to make a little bit of sense though when you look at it through the lens of there wasn't supposed to be a jury battle back, but rather it was a backup plan in the event that the bonus life power app failed in the pre-jury. This is something that I legitimately believe in, and it's all because of the fact that they didn't have that freaking chair ready for Kaitlyn. Had there been a chair ready for her, I promise you, I would not be talking to you about this right now. But because of that one minor detail, I've started spiraling in my conspiracy theorist ways. And I'm here to tell you that I definitely believe this one to be true.
Get set. Go.
No, it's Dad. I can't lift it.
1.
I'm sorry, Kaitlyn. You have lost the bonus life. Up next, come here. Up next, I'll talk one-on-one with Kaitlyn. You had a chance to stay in. You were so close, but you missed the mark.
I didn't know what to expect either. That was not what I was expecting, for sure.
Okay, in closing off this iteration, we're going a little askew, because for one of the first times ever, I'm going to talk about Celebrity Big Brother. This theory is that in Celebrity Big Brother 2, Anthony Scaramucci was not actually a fake house guest, and he genuinely did just quit the game, but the producers didn't want that to be the narrative, so they scrambled to cover it up by pretending that this was always the plan, and then shoehorning in the whole Scaramucci's veto thing. Once again, that was kind of a lot at once, so let me give you some context. Going into Celebrity Big Brother 2, Big Brother was heavily promoting that Anthony Scaramucci was going to be on the season. He was famously known for being the director of communication at the White House under Donald Trump for a whopping 10 days before being fired after he voiced his disdain for members of the Trump administration. So Big Brother knew that he was their big name for the season, and they promoted the heck out of him leading up to the start. However, once the season began, things didn't seem to be going Anthony's way. He was nominated in the very first week, lost the veto, and then seemed like an actual option to get evicted first. But then, all of a sudden, he was just gone. Poof. Out of the house. On the 4th episode, it was revealed that Anthony was never actually a real house guest, and rather a fake one that really had no legitimate purpose of being there. And as a parting gift, he gave the house guest a second veto competition themed around him. It all felt so off. Like so needlessly extra and convoluted. It also felt like a slap in the face. Like you spent all this time promoting Anthony for this season, just for him to not even be a real player and out of the house before the live feeds even turned on? That's pretty messed up. And like, what even is the twist? That he was just in there for a few days? That's not a twist. But in my head, everything starts to make a little more sense if you consider that maybe that wasn't ever the plan. I think it is very possible that Anthony Scaramucci just quit the game once things weren't going in his favor and he was sitting on the block in that first week. But after promoting Anthony so much for the season, Big Brother didn't want the narrative to be that he quit almost immediately after the game began. So they created their own narrative and pretended like it was planned the entire time. They could just slap the word twist on this whole situation like a band-aid and make it seem like they were always in control, you know? Adding to this, I think the whole Scaramucci's veto competition looked super thrown together. The whole set was just this big black box with some blown up fake newspaper, which doesn't seem like it would need that much work to create. All in all, this was just such a weird situation that I have to think that it was all a cover-up. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of things that go against my theory. For starters, with Anthony in the game, that meant that there would be 10 jurors, which isn't something that Big Brother likes to do. But with him being a fake house guest, that brings the number of jurors back down to the standard 9, which makes more sense. Secondly, I saw people sharing posts with proof that Anthony had previously been booked for some conventions taking place during the time frame of the season, which he would not have been able to commit to unless he knew that he wouldn't still be in the Big Brother house. And lastly, Anthony himself has said after the fact that it was always the plan for him to leave right away, and that he was never a real house guest. But I don't care. This whole situation has never sat right with me, and I will always believe that it was a cover-up. So, even if there is some evidence that goes against this theory, this is a conspiracy theory that I fully back, and I truly do believe that Anthony Scaramucci simply walked from the game.
My name's Anthony Scaramucci. I'm also known as the Mooch. I got fired from the White House for using a few curse words. What's outrageous? Look at this that we're doing right now.
My first nomination, Anthony. All right.
Boom! I'm on the block. Losing this power of veto competition absolutely sucks. If I can't get off this chopping block, I could be heading home. Let's face it, I've been fired before, but I'm not a quitter.
Hello guys, surprise! I'm actually not a Big Brother house guest. From this moment on, I'm out of the house. I'm giving the current nominees a second chance at safety by winning Mooch's veto.
Welcome to my press room. You are surrounded by headlines about me.
It's gonna last longer than my stint in the White House, God willing.
And there we go. 9 down. We have covered roughly 47 theories at this point, and I say let's go for a nice round 52. That means I need 5 more theories. So if you have a theory of your own or something you've seen talked about online, please share it in the comments. And if it's a good one, I very well may cover it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I, of course, need to give that extra special shout out to all of my YouTube members and patrons who are all deeply saddened that Anthony Scaramucci wasn't a real house guest. And, as always, here's a clip for you on your way out.
Lolo and I have a final 2.
We have to think of a final 2 name.
Oh my God. How can I not check the room?
Natalie didn't know my ass was in the room.
Did you say final 2?
That is what you said. I was like, yes, I know the name of the final 2. Busted.com. Y'all busted. Okay?